Okay, we're going to start off today with a magic trick. This is a cow. I have to imagine that this is a cow, very active cow, and this is the cow's barn. And he lives in here every night. He lives in this barn, and he comes out every day and runs around the pasture. The farmer loves this cow because he's so active. He runs around so much that the milk is churned up into butter. And since it's a square cow, when he comes out, it's already in cubes. And he's making a fortune having this cow with cube butter. But his favorite place to play is the pasture. He goes into the pasture during the day, plays around, messes around, does whatever he wants, comes back out in the night, in the evening, comes back out and goes into the barn at night. Close up the barn, close it up, make sure it's tight, nobody can get in, nobody can get out. Then just before he goes to bed, he carefully goes and opens up the door, checks the cow, closes it again, locks it up, ties it up. One night the barn catches on fire. Oh, the farmer is devastated. He comes running out and opens the door to get his cow out, and there's no cow. And then he runs over this side and opens the door, no cow. And he runs over this side and opens the door, and no cow. So then he decides he's going to open both doors. No cow there, no cow there. Where's the cow? In the pasture. Safely in the pasture. Okay, what happens immediately after you see the impossible happen? You try and figure it out. How was it done, right? You know what you saw really didn't happen. So you go back in your mind to try and find out how you were fooled. What did you see? What did really happen? What did you miss in the trick? What really happened? Let me show you real quick. I got a quarter right here. Everybody, half the people in the world know how to do this. This is a quarter. And I put it in this hand, and it's in this hand. Here's a quarter. I put it in this hand, and it's in this hand. Oh, where'd it go? What really happened? In magic, you never really believe what you see. In fact, you go to a magician hoping he will fool you. Jerry Argetsinger was a talented magician living in Rochester, New York. He often would perform small outside shows for teenagers. While he was doing his magic, sometimes somebody from the back of the outside show would walk along the side of the group to try and get closer to the magician. When they moved to the side, Jerry would stop what he was doing and tell them, "You need to be in front of me, not to the side of me." And then he said, "I do magic, not miracles." I have never forgotten those words. Magic, not miracles. Today, I want to briefly discuss magic and miracles. Magic is not believing what you see, but that's okay. You clap and you want more. A miracle is seeing what is not possible happen and believing it. You don't try and figure out how it was done. It just happened. It was a miracle. You believe because you have faith in the miracle worker. And you know that God is a God of miracles. Let's look at the miracles the Lord did in Egypt through Moses. Moses' rod changed into a serpent when it was thrown to the ground in front of the Pharaoh. Pharaoh had his magicians do the same thing. Moses smote the river and the water turned to blood. Pharaoh's magicians kind of did the same thing. The Bible records, quote, "And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto Moses." The miracles did nothing to convince the Pharaoh of God's message. He looked at them as magic tricks. Finally, the Lord told Moses, "Yet will I bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards," the Lord said, "he will let you go hence. In fact, He will thrust you out altogether. It's kind of like the Lord had it with Pharaoh's hard heart. And thus the last plague, quote, "The firstborn of man and beast shall die," end of quote. This would be no magic trick. And the firstborn did die, all of them, but not the faithful Israelites. The angel of death passed over the faithful Israelites. Even today, they celebrate this with the feast of the Passover. The believers were blessed by the miracle. The non-believers were not. Now I'd like to share with you a personal miracle that taught me a true principle. Years ago, when we had 10 children living at home, it was December. And in getting ready for Christmas with our 10 kids, my wife and I were not feeling much of the Christmas spirit. She asked me one night, "What can I do more to feel the spirit?" I gave her the answer I had learned teaching seminary. Read the Book of Mormon every day. Well, she took that to heart and started her daily reading of the Book of Mormon with real intent to invite the Spirit into her life. 5 months later, in May, after our 7 girls had used the family curling iron on their hair and were off to school, my wife picked up that curling iron that had been on for at least 2 hours to curl her hair. While curling her bangs, the curling iron slipped and landed right on her eyeball. As she was looking up, it came down with shh. She called me at work and told me she had just burned her eye with a curling iron. I immediately left and came home. As I went into the house, I could see her eye had clouded over like when you put an egg white on a hot pan. We quickly went to our doctor, and right there he called an eye doctor who saw us immediately. He looked into her eye, put a patch on it, put some antibiotics on it, and then put a patch on it, and told her to not try and move her eye for 2 days, and then come back in 2 days. And then he said, "We'll know what the eye is going to do, and we'll know what we now need to be done. What now needs to be done." That evening, we called our home teacher, and he came over, and he and I gave my wife a priesthood blessing. In that blessing, I said something I had never said before or since in a priesthood blessing. While giving her the blessing, I said, "You will be healed immediately, miraculously." 2 days later, we went back to the eye doctor. He looked in the eye, then he looked in the other eye, and then he looked back at the burned eye again, and then he said, "If I had not written down which eye had been burned, I would never know. It is completely healed." Now for the rest of the story that I learned. A few months later, I'm not sure how many, I received a phone call from one of my home teaching families, about 9 o'clock. The husband asked if I could come and help him administer a blessing to his wife. She had asthma and was having a trouble breathing. Evenings are the hardest for her, he said. 2 days later, I was again called around 9 o'clock at night to help administer a blessing to her. 2 days later, I was again called. This time, they asked me if I would be the voice in the blessing. In the middle of the blessing, I heard myself say, "As you read the Book of Mormon, you will gain the faith needed to be healed." I then proceeded with the rest of the blessing. On my way home, I put the two experiences together. My wife had been faithfully studying the Book of Mormon with real intent to get the Spirit for 5 months. I was prompted to bless her. You will be healed immediately, miraculously. The other sister, I was prompted to promise her, as she read the Book of Mormon, she would gain the faith in Jesus Christ necessary to be healed. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not a universal formula for healing, but it does fit these two occasions. However, there is a universal formula for miracles and God's blessings in our life. Faith in Jesus Christ always precedes the miracle.